And it is 10 o'clock and it is time to get started with our day. My name is Randy Lober, your growth marketing manager here at Action Benefits, here to talk with you a bit about putting on some educational events that actually work for you and your business. I'm joined today by Renee Tavalt, one of our account managers, maybe even your account manager on our individual team. Renee, I want to give you a chance to say hi before we dive in here today.
Hi, Randy. Thanks for including me on this session today, and thank you to all who are attending this webinar. We look forward to working with you, and if you have any questions after this event, go ahead and please reach out to our individual team. We are happy to answer any of your questions. So thanks for joining.
Yep. And thank you for joining here, Renee. Now, I should put on a or give a brief disclaimer. If you're looking for information about compliance and things like that, like how to host a Medicare 101 session, that was a good fit for yesterday's session, and that is live on our YouTube channel. You're welcome to go check it out. Today, we're taking a little different approach and looking at some different ways to build your marketing chops and find maybe a few other things you can educate folks about. And here's why I want to do that. Down at the bottom of your screen, I want to get a quick sampling from you. You have a raise hand button. Would you kindly click that raise hand button if you've ever had 0 people show up to one of your events? Just quickly use that raise hand button. Or if you've ever had trouble getting past a gatekeeper at one of your events. So you go to the librarian, you go to the senior center, and they're saying, "No, we don't need you right now. We have enough insurance professionals coming in here." Right? Click the raise hand button if that applies to you. Or even worse, what if you've had an event canceled on you? Go ahead and click the raise hand button if that is true for you too. And gosh, I'm seeing about 50 to 60% of our participants have hands raised after one of those 3 things. It's hard to get people coming to an event. And over the next few minutes, I want to share a few reasons why that might be the case. Maybe it might not be the reason it's the case for you, but um, there is some good data here to bear this out. So I've lowered your hands here. You're free to use those again later on throughout the session. But here's why you may have trouble getting people showing up to your events. Every other year or so, Gallup Polling, the famous polling firm, polls Americans about professions that they see that are trustworthy. And on your screen here, you see the percent of folks over the past over 2019, 2022, 2023, and their change between the years of how whether or not they rate those professions as highly ethical or very highly ethical. So you see here at the top half of the list, people see nurses on the whole as pretty ethical. They see engineers as pretty ethical, dentists as pretty ethical. But you, as insurance professionals, we're not in the top half of the list. In fact, we're over here in the bottom of the list, in the bottom quartile or so, if I did my math right, where only 13% of the population or of the polling sample, if we're being fair to statistics here, believes that you, as an insurance salesperson or insurance professional, is trustworthy. And in fact, over the past year or the past several years, we've lost a percentage point there. People think we are just about somewhere as trustworthy between state governors and people who work in advertising or used car salesmen, right? So we've got a lot of work to do in kind of repairing our image, and maybe not just you, right? But sometimes, bad actors or a bad experience they've had with another insurance professional, they tend to judge you with like those same colored glasses, right? They view they can view all of us as the same. So we've got to do something to break that mold. Whether or not you make a sale hinges on whether or not a prospect knows, likes, and trusts you. And so we need to find another way to build that know, like, and trust. You'll hear me call that KLT throughout today's session or slip back into that. When I say KLT or know, like, and trust, we're looking for ways to build that know, like, and trust factor with your prospects and clients. And I propose, and we propose, that one way you can do that is by leading with anything but insurance. So when you put insurance first in your educational sessions, when you put insurance first in your networking attempts, people see you as that insurance salesman, and 87% of people are going to say, I don't know about you," because they see you as an insurance professional, right? They don't see you as a person who can bring value to their life, value to their to meet their needs yet. So what we propose then is that you educate, but you educate about anything other than insurance. So I want you to, take a quick self inventory, if you will. What are some hobbies, passions, or pursuits of yours, and what could you teach others about? If you need some inspiration, because I caught you on the spot here, here's some things we've worked with agents on in the past. Some agents have gone to senior centers and taught seniors how to use their iPads. How do I download Facebook and how do I use Facebook? How do I set up my profile? Renee brought up a good example of an agent she's worked with who's put together on a decluttering course, right? How do I get my living space in order? Some people are, especially if they're working in, senior centers and things like that. Whittling is making a comeback, believe it or not. You could teach a fitness class how to, stay fit from your chair and work on that stretching routine and stay limber. Cookie decorating, knitting, painting. You could be a history buff. The choices are literally endless. You could teach someone about anything you might want. Renee, are there any other topics that speak to you or that you've heard from you'd like to raise here?
Randy, I think actually a lot of these topics are very good. And sometimes, I know I'm guilty of it too. Like you feel like, what could I educate someone about? Think about your hobbies, whether it's like classic cars. If you own a classic car and you want to hold a session at your local library about your hobby and teaching others about your car, that could lead to something down the road, but these are very good topics that others could educate
Yeah.
others on.
And yeah, thanks, Renee. And classic cars, especially in our area, especially in Southeast Michigan, around Dream Cruise season, and we'll get to like scheduling a little bit later on. But gosh, what a great fit if that happens to match some of your hobbies, and what a great way to build a connection out there with prospects. So, what we want to go with you or present to you over the next few moments here, we're here until about 10:45 or so here today. We want to present to you a four-step framework to putting together, an educational session, knowing that maybe public speaking to a larger audience or even teaching might be far out of your wheelhouse. Want to put, give you a little bit of a skeleton you can hang some of those ideas on, and look at some ideas and how you might put together a session on. Maybe you're a Civil War buff, or maybe you're a painting, or maybe you're like cookie decorating, or a baker, or anything of the sort. Give you some ideas of how you could put that session together. Four steps we'll take a look at today are beginning with the end in mind, making a plan that leads you to that end, figuring out how we're going to execute that plan, and then at the very end, we're going to reveal your secret identity. We're going to be Clark Kent. We're going to take those glasses off, and surprise, you are an insurance professional. So we'll talk about how to get there and some ways you can make that segue in just a bit. So the first question I want you to ask yourself as you are thinking about what you might, bring to the table here for your prospects or your beneficiaries is, what will attendees have produced at the end of your session? Or what will they know how to do when they leave your session? Whether it is adding apps to their iPad, or maybe they're whittling some wacky wood shapes, or maybe you're playing Picasso with painting kits, having a tangible, observable end goal in mind is a big help, because that gives you a powerful promise to use in pitching your session to your gatekeepers, to drawing people in, and to hooking their attention when they're actually in this session from the very beginning. How neat would it be to say to someone, hey, at the end of this hour, at the end of this 90 minutes, you'll have a self-portrait to share with your grandkids. How powerful might that be for, a prospect that's sitting out there for you? And so there's some other ways you can write these goals. And a few, so I give you a few examples here and want to walk you through some of the nuances here in the language here as well. Note that whatever goal you have, whether it is that self-portrait or a still life painting or even that stretching routine, it should be something tangible, and your language should show the benefit someone benefit someone would get from your session. So it's never just learn to paint, right? It's learn to have this. You can share it with your grandkids. Learn to have this still life so you can decorate your space. Learn to stretch so you can keep flexible without leaving your chair. So it's always this do X, do Y, do Z, so you can do A, B, C down the road. And that having that benefit in mind is crucial because it's key to making it past gatekeepers, right? When you talk to that scheduler at the community center or at the library, they're going to look at you and say, "Oh, yay, another painting class," right? But if you have that little bit of marketing zhuzh behind it, right, that little something extra to present that helps get you in the door, cracks that door open. And same thing for driving attendance, right, and hooking attention at the beginning. If people know what they'll get, they can feel, they can touch, they can see a benefit from spending time with you, you're well on your way to getting them in the door and working with you, not only in the session but building your know, like, and trust value with them. So I want to get some ideas from you, the audience here, and happy to hear what Renee might think about here as well. What are something that you might feel comfortable teaching over others over the course of an hour? Please feel free to put some thinking in the chat here. What is stirring up for you here at the moment? So Joanne brings up that she's a cookie maker and decorator, and Joanne, that's one of the examples I'm going to use in a bit later on, actually. And of course, there's some other uh, things coming in privately here. Remember, you can toggle who you want to see your chat here, but some of these ideas do have like an upfront cost, right? If you are a cookie decorator or a maker, you're going to want to make sure that you're not losing a bunch of money on the deal here, right? So some of you are mentioning a lot of the ideas you've mentioned so far are costly. You're exactly right. It could be a case where you spend money to make money, where you're bringing materials in for these sessions. But if you can also find maybe some lower cost or no cost things, right? If you would put together a presentation about something historical or even a writing class, right? How to write XYZ poetry. That is fairly low cost in terms of actual capital expenditure, but you have just put some time into that design of what that class might look like. There's an option too, right? And I know not everyone's got a marketing budget here to work with where they can kind of throw dollars in here, but it is an investment that you might consider making to bring people in here. Renee, is there anything else that's on your mind?
Um, I'm going back and thinking about the decluttering because that's always like a topic where, I'm trying to declutter and this and that. And you never know. I mean, if you hold a session on decluttering, if you're very good at that and how to declutter before, you retire, before someone moves out of state, maybe that could eventually lead to oh, by the way, do you know of someone who, sells insurance? I'm going to retire in 6 months. So that could lead to another conversation.
Mhm. And you're exactly right, Renee. The whole point here, and I'll reveal this later on, is we're just opening doors here, right? We're building our know, like, and trust, getting our face in front of these people as anything but an insurance agent first, so they'll be more likely to spend time with us a little bit later on. Next up, I want to take a look at is making a plan. What steps will attendees take to produce the thing, whatever the thing is that you might have agreed on? So if you have an observable end goal in mind, it's so much easier to think about what it takes to get your attendees across the finish line. So if, for example, you know you want them to paint a portrait, you'll need to consider each step you want them to take in the process, from mixing their colors to painting the background to putting finer brushstrokes in the foreground. You're going to want an idea of how that will work, and you'll want to write it down. And writing out your step-by-step instructions rather, is a huge asset for three big reasons. The first one is it helps you keep your thoughts straight when you're in the moment, which is especially helpful if teaching and or public speaking isn't typically in your wheelhouse, especially if this is something new for you. Secondly, it provides the basis of a handout your attendees can follow if they work at a different pace than your demo, which of course you're going to run at the same pace of your group. And also turning the steps into a handout gives you a good reason to put your name, face, and contact information in front of these folks as well. Bonus points if your step-by-step instructions also include images of what each step should look like. On your screen here, I wanted to find something bigger that I could blow up and show you, but it is a kind of a really simple way to look at how to use perspective in a line drawing here, right? And you could add color and painting later on. And not every task is this simple here, right? Um, but I use this as an example of how those few kind of step-by-step illustrations can give someone an idea of what they should do next, even when you're not over their shoulder. Um, as a former classroom teacher myself, I taught middle school and high school for a bit before joining the insurance world. I so many times there was, "Hey, what do I do next? Hey, what do I do next?" And there's this frequent hand raising, right, where kids are like, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do." Having something like this where where you can just say, "Oh, you just did step 4, go on to step 5," can be really helpful in simplifying your responses to those questions. Your next step then is if you have a plan, you're going to want to execute that plan. How are you going to drive people to produce that thing that you've decided? Of course, knowing that you're going to need to gather any materials you need for that course, and then you're going to get off to the races here. So when your class starts, you're going to want to bring them in with that benefit you drafted earlier. I have cookies up on here on the screen because that's a class my wife and I have taken recently, and I had some good fun with here. But remind them why they signed up for the class. Remind them of the benefit you promised them a little bit earlier on, whether that's having delicious cookies to share with your neighbor, whether that is, uh, I see that you say that looks familiar there, Joanne. Um, whether that is, having that self-portrait, something to share with your grandkids a little bit later on, whatever that benefit is, hook them back in with that. Um, when you make that promise to them, they're going to be ready to uh, be engaged with you, right? They're going to remind yourselves why they're there. And then you'll begin by demonstrating whatever the first step in that process is. And as you do, you're going to talk through what you're doing and why. So if you're using a particular brush stroke on your painting, for example, explain that. If you're using a specific material in your, uh, whenever you're making a craft, explain why. If you want them to use this glue instead of that glue, explain that, right? Show some of the knowledge behind um, whatever it is you're doing, because that again cements your case for being a knowledgeable and trustworthy individual. Then, once you've demonstrated it, ask everyone to complete only that step you just demonstrated. And here's the key: as they're working, here's your chance to work the room. As you walk around, you're providing affirming feedback like, "Hey, Janice, I love the way you're blending those colors." Or, "Hey, Cliff, put a little less frosting on your brush and maybe you can help cover things more evenly on your next cookie," or whatever the case might be. And that circulating and feedback cycle is crucial because that feedback is a perfect chance to spend some one-on-one time with each person in that room and start building your rapport, building your know, like, trust value with them. And then you kind of just repeat that process until the thing is done, right? Until the batch of cookies is decorated, until the painting is complete, until the history course lesson is learned. Um, and you'll be on your way, right? And you'll have those purposeful interactions with everyone throughout uh, your class here. So I want you to think about a class you've enjoyed. Actually, maybe you've taken a painting class or a cooking class or something, either solo or with your spouse or anything else. What else might have made that class likable for you? What have you liked about anything you've taken recently? Go ahead and jot a few notes in the chat here. And Renee, as you think back to maybe classes you might have taken, what else sticks out for you? What makes for a good class?
Uh, a lot of patience. I like the information that you provided because some of the best classes I've taken over the years, the instructor's been very patient and they do repeat the steps. And I've always remembered that. So,
Patience is key, right? And especially as someone who may be working in the Medicare market, as I imagine a lot of our attendees here are today. You likely have a bit of patience already embedded in your personality, right? Because sometimes it does take patience to explain like all these complicated Medicare things to your prospects and your clients. Um, just bring that patience into your teaching environment too, so to speak, right? And you'll be able to kind of build this relationship as you're walking around and working with them. The next thing we'll want to be able to talk about, we've talked about everything but insurance, but it's okay. Once they have completed the task, and I'm stalling while I get my mouse to behave here, now it's time to reveal your secret identity. Um, the only time you bring up insurance in a session like this is at the end, at the very last possible moment, until you've waited so long that it's just going to burst out of you. You can't possibly not tell anyone anymore that you work in insurance. But you want to be mindful about what got your audience inside the door in the first place. Their goal, their focus of this session was developing that skill, doing the thing that you were there to teach. Once that goal is accomplished, then you've earned a little bit of credibility with them. And you can say things like, knitting doilies is just a side hobby of mine. In my day job, I'm an insurance agent. If you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer those too. And now, because you've earned that credibility, you've got the right to offer business cards in their eyes. You're a little more trustworthy than whoever might have come in last week and just started throwing pamphlets and flyers for different a variety of carriers at them. So you're using the entire, 58 minutes before this point to really build that know, like, and trust factor. Only in the last few moments are you really talking about insurance. Um, but that's okay because hopefully in those first 58 moments, you've built a strong connection with them. And again, you're also not making a strong sales pitch here, right? You're not um, forcing the issue. You're not collecting scopes of appointments. You're just saying, "Hey, I can answer questions." And if they do bring up a question that would require you to have a scope, gosh, what a great time to think about, collecting that scope of appointment and working from there. Um, so why does this all work? Why did Action Benefits take the time out to make this webinar and put it together for you? The reason is because it gives you an opportunity to share your expertise. It shows you off as a knowledgeable individual about something, right? And that builds credibility. When you spend quality time with those folks too, as you are circulating, you're spending around, you're giving feedback. Hey, Janice, I love the way you're doing that. Hey, Cliff, not so much. Here's how we can do it better next time, or you're giving some of that feedback there in the moment, you're building relationships with those people and you're building your know, like, and trust factor with them. And that is where you're going to start earning trust and where you're going to start earning clients and earning people asking you questions about insurance and everything else. Um, so that's the big reason here, right? Because you're showing off that you're an expert in a lot of things. You're building your reputation with them and spending good time with them while doing so. Renee, anything to add on that before we talk about some of the logistics here on the backside?
Nope, everything sounds good, Randy.
All right, thank you. So, of course, if you have this event, right, you've scheduled your cookie decorating class, you've scheduled your painting, you scheduled your history talk, you scheduled your comparison of Ford versus Ferrari, right? Whatever it is you're going to talk about, there's some things you got to think about. How do you get people there? When are these events a good fit in the calendar? And I would argue that right now, here in spring, is an excellent time for you to start scheduling things like these once you've got your sea legs under you. If your event requires folks to travel because it is at a library or community center, you're probably out of the woods for snowy weather blocking you down. Although we are, I think, getting a few mixed flurries right here at the moment. So don't hold me to that. But by starting here in the spring, you get you have the chance to get a sense of what works and what doesn't. So you can schedule maybe some repeat engagements or try other areas in your community and build your know, like, and trust factor. Um, there's one agent that we work with that, started, uh, working with a painting class in their local library, had some good success with that, and ended up, going to 4 or 5 other libraries around that, visits one each every, 2 months or so, but brings the same painting to each. So really, for the price and investment of learning how to teach one thing, she's built a lot of capital, can bring that around and build a lot of relationships with prospects and clients going forward. So starting now gives you a lot of runway to experiment, I guess, is the moral of this slide. Summer, of course, is not a bad time either. People are going to be out and about. But one thing I will caution you on is a lot of senior centers or community centers are scheduling their day trips or overnights during this time. You're going to see busloads of seniors going up to Soaring Eagle and Mount Pleasant. You're going to see busloads of seniors going down to the casinos in Detroit. You'll see busloads of people going up to Traverse City for wine tasting, all those sorts of things. So you may have a little bit tougher time scheduling things during the daytime or on the weekends. So you might need to think about an evening class or something during the summer where you might be more likely to draw some attendance. And early fall, not during AEP, because hopefully you're so busy during AEP because of all the work you've invested so far. But early fall can be a good time, late September through the beginning of AEP here. A good reason that's a great time to host these events is because you're going to be fresh in people's minds as they consider their benefits for the upcoming year, right? Especially if they've come to know you recently, they've come to like you recently, and they know you're working in the insurance sector. They might be that much more likely to reach out to you. So if that's about when we might schedule these events, let's talk about how we get people there. And the first, probably cheapest option you have at your disposal is working with the venue that you're scheduling at. And the analogy I like to use here is uh, any band that comes through Pine Knob, and it's forever going to be Pine Knob, not DTE. But any band that comes through Pine Knob, right? They have their own advertising that tells you about their tour. But Pine Knob has their billboards. Pine Knob has their web ads that lets you see who's coming, when, so on and so forth, because they want to fill those seats too. Just a library or a senior center is going to want to fill those seats. So they probably have newsletters they talk about their upcoming events, and they have their own social media that you can sort of piggyback on. So um, if you are able to get an event scheduled with them, talk with them about what partnerships might exist there or what possibilities you have in front of you to get your name, face, and class in associated with those. There is always the option of getting boots on the ground here as well. So maybe if you know you're going to have a session at your local library, you can start printing a bunch of flyers and wallpaper all those bulletin boards you see in doctors' offices or pharmacies, or maybe at local restaurants where you see people meeting for their coffee clubs or whatever the case might be. Um, as long, again, and you're going to see this everywhere, as long as whatever you put on that flyer and that invitation is compliant with CMS guidelines. But if it's just a cookie decorating class, right? If it's just a uh, whatever other class you've decided on, you're not talking about Medicare or anything else at the session here. That's not the purpose of the session. You've got a lot of freedom in how you present yourself, a lot of creativity in how you do so. If you are ready to get a little more sophisticated beyond kind of that word of mouth and leveraging things, you can use some census data. Census data is provided to you at no cost from the US Census Bureau, and your account manager or I am happy to walk you through how to do that. But you can find communities who are rich in members who are over 65 to figure out if there's a good fit here. You can also zero in on the types of businesses or industries you might be interested in partnering with, because maybe in an area that has a lot of bakeries, maybe your cookie decorating class isn't going to go so well, right? Because people are like, hey, I can just go buy cookies from the corner store. You can also look at lead lists as well, although because of the final rule that came down about 20 days ago, um, lead lists are going to be a little bit harder to come by because seniors or anyone else has to opt in to having their information shared each time someone buys a lead from them. And I think it would be increasingly unlikely that seniors are going to say, yes, sell my information. Yes, sell my information. Yes, sell my information each time someone buys a list. So uh, buyer beware there, I suppose. Another option, of course, is you have every door direct mail. It is, I think, an underrated option for putting some mailing pieces in front of your prospects and clients. Um, it is a good fit for a lot of small businesses who know an area, which many of yours may be smaller businesses, right? It is a good fit for if you know a rough geographic area you want to send to. How it works is you work with the post office and say, I want to hit everyone that's on this mail route, and this mail route. And you're using some data, right? Like how many people are 65 in this area to back that up. And the postal carrier is on that route. Just drop your flyer, drop your postcard on every place in that mailbox. It can be done for reasonably, uh, I say reasonably cheap here, probably 80 to 90 cents per piece, including creative and things like that, to get things out there as well. And there's also social media. And this is probably, if you're going to pay at all beyond making a flyer, this is probably one of your most cost-effective approaches. You can, with about $30 on Facebook, put your ad in front of about 2,000 people in the area around you, which is a fairly good investment, all things considered. And of course, it does take a little bit of outreach on your part, a little bit of expenditure on your part. But you can also build, your target audience there. You can look at, yes, only show this to people who are between 60 and 65, or show this to people who are 70 plus. Show this to people who meet these other demographics. So you have lots of flexibility in who you show those ads to and can target them really well. And again, your account manager or anyone on my team, the marketing team, are happy to walk you through that as well. So we've talked about a few different strategies you might have at your disposal. I want to hear from you all what some strategies might seem most doable at the moment in terms of getting people in the door. I also want to check in with Renee on anything she might have to add here.
Randy, the options, they all look are options that agents could consider and just kind of see if one of these is a good fit for them.
Thank you. Sorry, I was victimized by a very hot sip of coffee here while I was working here. Um, But yeah, they can all be good options. See some of you, saying, gosh, I'm just starting out or getting close to it. Uh, so I don't have a lot of money to spend. So social media could be a cost-effective way to do so once you have your presence established. And again, flyers don't cost a ton to print when you go to Kinko's, right? For advertising events, or it's not Kinko's anymore. I'm showing my age. It's FedEx now. But when you go to FedEx and you print a few flyers, you can do so and make them look real snappy and see if that draws attendance for you as well. So a few good strategies that you might be able to use in driving people to your event. All that said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time and attention here this morning. Uh, had a good time spending some time with you and hearing about what you are passionate about. I now know some of you are cookie decorators, some of you are painters, some of you are history buffs, and that's always nice to know to be able to talk with you about and catch up on as well. But also, hopefully, that you have some ideas to share. To kind of jumpstart your marketing going forward here, especially in a slower season where there's no or formal enrollment periods like AEP or OEP coming up. So you do have some time to experiment and start building your uh, prospect list going forward. If you ever want to get in touch with anyone here at Action, you feel free to follow us on LinkedIn at the Action Benefits Company. You can get in touch with me or Chelsea at learning@actionbenefits.com or anyone on the Action team at 248-356-8585. Before we wrap up here for the morning, Renee, any parting words from you before we send everyone on their way here?
If anyone has any additional questions, they can reach out to their account manager on the individual team or just reach out to our individual um, email address and contact us with your questions, and we'd be happy to answer them for you.
Yeah. Uh, yep. As I said, your account managers are always available there. So individual at actionbenefits.com is a great way to reach them. Should also mention that we always have some marketing dollars in the budget for our agents. So if you're eyeballing an event that you have um, coming up, right? Or you're thinking about what might be possible there, go ahead and run it by your account manager. Go ahead and run it by me if you so choose. And we're happy to, work with you, think with you about what you might be able to do to make that a reality and see if there's some ways we can help you out with that as well. With all that said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and stop the recording here, but Renee and I are happy to stick around for any other discussion you all would like to have about this topic or anything else that's on your minds.